Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Will. I am the student pastor at Anchor, and I'm carrying on with Thursday's readings in Anchor Voices. And I want to share from both the Old Testament and the New Testament readings today. So, in the Old Testament, we are now at the book of Ruth, which is a tiny book, kind of hidden away between Judges and Samuel. And in the New Testament, we're reading the Gospels of Mark. And we're caught in two stories that feel a bit strange when you read the start of it, and it really speaks to the patriarchal society, and how often the woman and the immigrant people have the lowest standings in society. So firstly, you got the Book of Ruth. In the Book of Ruth, it starts with this lady Naomi who has both lost her husband and she's also lost her two sons recently. They've died, and in that society, in that era, if you are a widowed lady, you are basically socially and economically one of the lowest standing people in society. You were very vulnerable. There wouldn't have been welfare for these people necessarily. So she decides to go back to her hometown in Bethlehem. Uh, yeah. Also, you then get in the book of Mark. In the book of Mark, Jesus is doing miracles. He's healing people. He's talking to the Pharisees and correcting them. And then in Mark 7, we read about this Gentile lady, a lady from she's Syrian Phoenician. And she goes up to Jesus and she says, Jesus, I've got a daughter who's demonized. Could you please deliver her? And Jesus looks at her and says, um, I have basically come for the children of Israel. You don't give food to the children and then lay it out to the dogs, which is confusing and it feels harsh. And in both texts, you're kind of left with a bit of like, why are these people the most vulnerable? It must be so hard for them. But I want to track both stories and look at how both stories get redeemed, and both stories you actually see so much beauty and hope, and you really track God's heart, and you see God's heart for those lowest in society. So firstly, Ruth. The story goes on about Naomi, this widowed lady, going to her hometown, and she has two daughters-in-laws who are both married to her recently deceased sons. And she says to the daughter-in-laws, "Go back to your hometown. There's no point you staying with me. There's no hope for me." She even changes her name to Mara, which means bitter, because she has no hope really, and two daughter-in-laws, one of them named Orpah, one named Ruth. Orpah decides that she's probably right and goes back to her hometown, leaves Naomi, but Ruth is loyal to Naomi and says, "No, I want to stay with you." So Ruth and Naomi go back to Bethlehem, but they are still very low in society. Ruth is an immigrant; she's a Moabite lady. Naomi's a widow. And the story goes on about Ruth trying to find food for Naomi and her, and goes to a crop field, and she comes across a guy called Boaz, who is from that area, and he is generous to Ruth. In fact, he even tells all the guys farming to be nice to Ruth, and to even drop the ends of their crops so Ruth can pick it up so she can take it home to Naomi. Ruth then tells Naomi about this, and Naomi said, "Boaz is part of my family. If you marry him, then you can redeem our family." Ruth then tells Boaz this, and Boaz basically accepts the invitation. He says, "Yes, I want to redeem your family. If he then gives the offer of there's someone closer. If you marry him, then he can redeem your family. But if not, I will do it." That guy declines because Ruth is a Moabite, but Boaz basically accepts, and he marries Ruth, and in doing so, he redeems the family. A few more things I want to say on that, but then we'll track again forward however many thousand years, 100 years, to this story in the Gospel of Mark. There's this lady that goes up to Jesus and says, "Jesus, can you heal my daughter?" Jesus says, "I've come for the people of Israel. I'm not. You don't give food to children and then lay them out to the dogs." And there's one interesting thing. I was just reading up on that because it seems very harsh to call that lady a dog. I'm sure you'll agree. Firstly, if you go to the language that Jesus was using, there were two words that he could have used for dog. One which was commonly used in that area for immigrants, for outsiders, was the word dog. That basically means like the hounds that like wander out in the wild and eat the sheep and eat the children. And people would have hated these hounds that wander around. They would have been vicious. They would have probably been diseased. And that was kind of a common term that people would have used to name and title these immigrant people. But Jesus doesn't use that. He uses the word that actually means little dog, and it's more of a the term that would have been. Some families would have had these small dogs that would have been in the houses, and they would have been beloved kind of pets like we have today. A better translation might be like, I've come for the children of Israel, not and you don't feed the children and then lay food out for the puppies. He's kind of more. It takes the sting away a bit, that term, but also what Jesus is doing, and it does feel like it's harsh. But he in that society there would have been no standing for a woman, especially an immigrant woman, to respond to Jesus and to correct him. But Jesus gives this woman, and I think he definitely gives this woman intentionally this chance to correct him. See, the woman responds, "Yes, you are right, but even the little dogs eat the crumbs from under the table." And Jesus then looks back at her and says, "Yes, you are right." And he says, "Go back home, your daughter has been delivered and healed." There's this beautiful story of redemption. This Gentile foreign woman who wouldn't have had much standing in society gets empowered by Jesus. Her family get restored and healed, and she's brought in to the story of God. Final thing on Ruth to say. At the end of Ruth, you get this genealogy. Ruth's now married Boaz, and Naomi's her family have been restored. And then at the very end, I'm just going to find it really quickly. You get this genealogy, and it says, basically, Boaz, who's Ruth's husband, was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. Now, most of us know who David was in the Bible, the guy that killed Goliath, the guy that was this great king, the guy that was a man after God's own heart. And also David, probably his biggest thing was that he was part of that genealogy of Jesus. See, the start of Ruth talks about a widowed lady with no standing in society, called Naomi, and an immigrant lady called Ruth. And the end of the story talks about both of these people being redeemed, and both of these people being brought into the genealogy of Jesus, brought into the story of God. This is really the heart of God, to come to the lowest, come to the most vulnerable in society, and give him, and just bring him into the story to redeem them. Guys, I hope that's helpful. Keep reading, let me know what you guys think, and hopefully see you all soon.